السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدنا أن نرحب بكم هذا الصباح في مقر الغرفة التجارية الصناعية بالرياض لحضور محاضرة المعلومات تصنع القرار، والتي تنظمها غرفة الرياض ممثلة بمركز المعلومات بالتعاون مع رويترز. أصحاب السعادة الأخوة والأخوات الحضور الكرام، أما الآن الكلمة بسعادة مساعد الأمين العام للشؤون الاقتصادية ومساعد الأمين العام للشؤون الفنية المكلف الأستاذ عبد الله التميمي، فليتفضل.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أصحاب السعادة المحاضرين، ضيوفنا الأكارم، الأخوة الحضور، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسرنا نرحب بكم جميعا في رحاب غرفة الرياض في مستهل لأعمال هذه المحاضرة التي تعقد بالتعاون مع رويترز، إحدى أكبر وأعرق وكالات الأنباء والمعلومات حول العالم، استشعارا منا لأهمية وقيمة المعلومات كعصب لبناء الحياة الاقتصادية، ويعتمد عليها أي مشروع أو نشاط اقتصادي استثماري كان أو تجاري. وفي مطلق فإن المعلومة هي الأساس الذي يستند إليه النشاط الفكري والعلمي، ولا شك أن صانعي القرار مطالبون بامتلاك المعلومات الموثوقة بالسرعة اللازمة وفي اللحظة التي تلبي حاجاتهم وتنير لهم الطريق لاتخاذ القرار في التوقيت الصحيح. الأخوة الحضور، إن عملية إنتاج المعلومات تواجه الكثير من التحديات التي تفرض على القائمين على هذه الصناعة بذل المزيد من الاهتمام والجهد العلمي والتقني كي نتمكن من إنعاش هذه الصناعة التي تواجه عراقيل ومعوقات عديدة، بعضها يتعلق بمستوى جودة وشفافية هذه المعلومات، والبعض الآخر يتعلق بمصادرها. ولهذه العوامل فقد بادرت غرفة الرياض ممثلة في مركز المعلومات إلى تنظيم هذه المحاضرة مع رويترز، استقطبت نخبة من الخبراء والمتخصصين الذين سيحاضرون اليوم لتبيان آخر ما توصل إليه العالم في سبيل إنتاج وإدارة المعلومة، وتجلية الغموض الذي يكتنف الوعي بأهمية إنتاج المعلومات والإحصاءات بالجودة والمصداقية التي تتطلبها المعايير العلمية. ولعلنا نسهم في تعزيز وعي المجتمع بكل شرائحه وقطاعاته بهذه الأهمية وفتح النوافذ أمام تدفق المعلومات. وحتى لا أطيل عليكم، أكرر شكري لشركة رويترز لتعاونها مع مركز المعلومات في تنظيم هذه المحاضرة، كما أشكر الأخوة المحاضرون آملا أن تحقق هذه المحاضرة أهدافها وغاياتها. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الأخوة الحضور، أما الآن يسعدني أن أقدم لكم سعادة مدير عام الشؤون المالية والمخاطر لمنطقتي الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا في شركة رويترز، السيد سامر حبال، فليتفضل.
This is what we do every day. To help over 20 million professionals around the world do what they do best: faster, easier, better. With the deepest set of financial data and advanced analytics, we provide fuller context of the world's markets, increasing transparency and reducing risk. By delivering the most comprehensive suite of legal research and workflow solutions to law firms, corporations, and governments, we ensure better legal outcomes around the globe. With the smartest, most intuitive technology, we deliver real-time insights and solutions into the world's most complex tax and regulatory environments. By offering seamlessly integrated databases that dig deeper, we accelerate research and protect innovation in the worlds of intellectual property and science. With Reuters News, the largest, most trusted news organization on the planet, we keep 1 billion people informed, while also breathing knowledge into every product we make, every day. We are Thomson Reuters. We are over 60,000 strong, in over 100 countries and growing. Everywhere business is happening, news is unfolding, discovery is being made. We serve professionals because the right information in the right hands leads to amazing things. Thomson Reuters.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Samer Habal, and I'm the General Manager of the Financial and Risk Division at Thomson Reuters in the Middle East and North Africa region. First, I would like to start by thanking the Riyadh Chamber of Commerce and Mr. Tamimi for the opportunity to organize this workshop, and thank you guests and speakers for attending it today. Our topic today is Information Makes Decisions. Organizations today have access to almost unlimited amounts of data: sales data, consumer, financial calculations, demographics, or economic trends, etc. Over the last 30 years, the field of performance measurement has been the focus of considerable attention from academics and practitioners alike in both the private and the public sector. What drives organizational performance? How do companies use the data they have or can get to make decisions that improve organizational performance? Research has shown that through appropriate measurement and management of performance, organizations can greatly benefit in the following areas. Number one, formulation, implementation, and review of organizational strategy. Number two, communication to stakeholders of the results achieved and strengthening of brand and reputation. Number three, motivation of employees at all levels, creation of a performance improvement culture, and fostering of organizational learning. Research has also shown that private companies have made substantial investments in performance measurement. Recent reports suggest that the average organization with $1 billion of sales spends over 25,000 man days planning and measuring their organizational performance. Companies such as Volvo believe that up to 20% of management time is associated with planning and budgeting. In the public sector, in a number of OECD countries, considerable attention has been paid to performance management by governments, practitioners, and even the media. In the UK, government departments estimate that they spend more than 150 million British pounds per year solely to monitor progress on national targets. Research conducted in this field has shown how performance measurement can be generally productive and help improve organizational performance. However, if done poorly, it can be very expensive, and not only ineffective, but harmful and indeed destructive. Therefore, in order to realize value and to help organizations become more sustainable in the longer term, it is crucial to improve the ways they measure and manage their performance and the data and their information. Today, more than ever, companies have to work harder to keep up with the pace of change and increase global competition. To succeed in multi-channel, high-speed environments, or what we call the internet age or the information age, organizations need to leverage the data they have at their disposal. Organizations today have access to almost unlimited amounts of data. Thomson Reuters, for example, issue 1.5 million price updates per second in the financial markets. However, many decision makers in those organizations feel lost and perplexed. They have mountains of data and still are not always capable of making the correct decisions or understanding where they really are. They fall under the delusion that mere data is enough. If we have the data and facts, then what more do we need? In today's connected digital economy, it has become easier to get the data. Yet, and possibly due to this phenomenon, it has become increasingly difficult to convert this data into meaningful information. Managers today complain of drowning in data while thirsting for information. Researchers found that businesses currently analyze less than 7% of the data that they collect, while despite collecting lots of data, organizations do not undertake the expected level of analysis on that data. Some argue that the reduction in the cost of storing large amounts of data is actually causing the organizations to be swamped with this data. There is an outburst of data in organizations driven by the demands of information from an increased number of stakeholders and an increasing number of internal initiatives. Organizations seem to be generating data at a much faster rate than any manager can master. And in parallel to that, the useful life of the data is collapsing. Those developing and managing 5-year plans are being forced now to rely on much shorter planning cycles. One of the most enduring traits of the information age is that we have focused too much on mastering transaction data and not enough on turning it into information and knowledge that can lead to business results. The problem, dear guests, has never been lack of useful tools or proven techniques. Most tools for data analysis, interpretation, and visualization have been around for many years. Various disciplines have provided numerous ways to extract value from data like quality management tools, information visualization tools, among others. Neither was the problem any lack of capable IT or business systems to deploy those tools. As a result of the growing investment in information and the need to ensure that the return on this investment is maximized, efforts have been exercised to ensure that the better use of information leads to better decisions. And if so, how can this be achieved? This validation spans topics such as management, social science, information technology, and even human psychology. Many more subjects are almost certainly related. In looking at the use of information in decision making, there is an overriding causal model behind this analysis. The conversion of data into information and information into knowledge to enable decisions to be made. So if we have better data, this will enable us to have better information, leading to better knowledge and hence better decisions. This is a rational view of decision making, which is implicit in much of the management research in the field. Many tools, techniques, and technologies have been developed to support the conversion of data into information and to support decision making. The terms data, information, and knowledge are overlapping concepts. These concepts are ambiguously defined in the subject matter literature. As a result, it's important that we define what is meant by these terms. And I'm going to give a proposal. Data consists of propositions that reflect reality. Such propositions may comprise of numbers, words, or even images. Information is the result of processing, manipulating, and organizing data in a way that adds to the knowledge of the receiver. In other words, it is the context in which the data is taken. Knowledge is what is known. Like the related concepts, truth, belief, and wisdom, there is no single definition of knowledge on which scholars agree, but rather numerous theories and continued debate about the nature of knowledge. It is worth noting that data and information are attributed to entities by people, hence should not be considered to be fact or truth. People don't necessarily take a rational approach to making decisions. We need to understand how individuals make decisions and what role data and information play in that process. This balance of approach depends on personality of the decision maker, perceived reliability of the data, type of a decision, experience and expertise of the decision makers. Finally, our discussion today is just about that. How do we translate the data into information and knowledge, and how do we use it or make decisions that help organizations evolve and become better at what they do? Let us listen to our guests and speakers to hear what they think about it. Thank you for attending this. I hope you will enjoy it. Before I move on to the next video, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker of today, Mr. Matthew Vasseur. Matthew is a partner at Oliver Wyman and heads their Riyadh office and their financial services practice for the Middle East and Africa. Please join me in welcoming Matthew to the podium right after the video.
The worst flooding in decades.
After Irene gathered the East Coast.
life whenever the Egyptian people can stand up and speak out for their rights.
After decades of accepting the world as it is in the region, we have a chance to pursue the world as it should be. Osama bin Laden has been brought to justice, and for all those families who lost their lives.
Sharif was greeted by Israeli Prime Minister.
North Korea says goodbye to its dear leader, Kim Jong-il.
If I go to Washington, my job is going to be getting good jobs for you.
We will not put up with this in our country. We will not allow a culture of fear to exist on our streets.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and Thomson Reuters for inviting me and to discuss this topic of information makes decision and the growing role of information in how we run businesses today. My field of specialty is banking, and what I'd like to give you is an example of what I've seen over my career on the growing importance of information in running day-to-day businesses and making executive decisions. And the theme that should be coming on screen, but it's not. The theme which I'd like to discuss today is how banking is evolving thanks to information and advanced information from being a money business to being an information business. And there's actual quantitative evidence for this transition. If you look in 2008, the market cap of financial services information businesses versus money business was 30%. So 30% of the market cap for those information businesses, like Thomson Reuters, versus banking. Today, it's 40%. We estimate that by 2020, the market value, the valuation of all companies providing information and insights to businesses will be higher than the actual operators in the banking industry. First, the idea of information as driving decision and banking as an information business, for instance, is not a new idea. You look at Citi, one of the established pioneers in this space. In '85, the CEO Walter Wriston decided to establish information as a business line. You know, same as retail, investment banking, corporate banking. You'll have a head of information. He was a visionary, but he failed. Why did he fail? So it was not a new idea, but it's an idea where the time has come for it to realize. What he did back in the days was to develop advanced network of providers and merchants, referral schemes and offer schemes. It didn't work because electronic payments were not that developed in the days. When you look today, electronic payments have much more advanced and much more prevalent across the whole world. What he tried as well was he bought a satellite. So Citi was buying satellites into space, as well as being a bank, to be able to underpin its information activities. It was very expensive, he didn't manage to operate it properly. But since then, cost of data and storage has tremendously fallen, and processing cost has tremendously fallen, which brings to you new possibility in how you harness information. What he did also was acquire Quattro, which was a competitor to Reuters and to Bloomberg, but he failed to really make it successful because execution is difficult. Managing information, managing data, transforming it in information, harnessing it is very difficult for a series of reasons. On privacy, advanced analytics, having the right end-to-end solutions. But more and more we see that it is possible to succeed in that space. What I wanted to show is, with this simple graph, is how information is becoming more and more valuable for businesses. And that's the example of banking again. If you look in the 90s and the early 2000s, you were in a world where money was expensive and highly valued. Banks could have very big leverage. They had low losses, but information at a high cost, relatively low coverage span, and decisions were mostly easy. It was not such a complex world with tons of information as we were shown earlier on. Today, risk-free rates have fallen. Leverage is falling in the banking system. Losses are much more important. Whereas information cost is decreasing, its breadth is increasing, and decisions are harder, much harder today than they were in the past. And therefore, the value of information has never been highest. And the business of banking, as many other businesses, has moved from being a money business to being an information business. And those who will succeed are those who will master and harness information. All the evidence is here. That's the value of money. It's going down the line. And if you look at the value of money, people say it will come back. Evidence is it will not. Because of information, precisely. You have more and more comparison tools which allow you to make better decisions and squeeze better pricing, including out of your banks. And therefore, the years of easy money for banks are gone because of information. So information can be an opportunity. It can also be a threat if it's used against you. And therefore, you need to be able to harness it. On the left-hand side, what we show is the threat from information, as it is changing your business. It's a threat if you cannot adapt. If you can adapt, it's an opportunity. And for banks which cannot adapt, as is the case for some of my clients, what it means is bigger pressure on rates from better information of customer, it's e-channels which are reducing the importance of a branch, very expensive network that they've built, and pressure on series of fees. But it can also be an opportunity. It can allow you to better price to your customer, looking at elasticity and pricing behavior. It will allow you to better measure the value of your customer, the value of your structure, and where you're making money and where you're not. And therefore being wiser through information on maximizing profitability. It also allows you to find what products will best sell to your customer and have the right offerings. If you see, for instance, one of the banks in the US is using credit card transaction to find patterns within its users of restaurants, which one they like, where they go to, how much they spend, what they buy, and they're providing information to their customers, but also to other providers, and making good money out of it. It can also be an opportunity in being more discerning, in understanding risk, and risk are ever increasing in today's environment. What we found, for instance, are insurance companies using GPS and telematics to find how you drive. Are you a dangerous driver? Are you safe? How much do you drive? Where do you drive? Do you drive at night? Do you drive fast? And therefore, they can offer you a different rate and a better rate if you're a good driver. So the age of information is upon us. It's a reality. And you have a choice. Embrace it and try to make it an opportunity, or just try to ignore it and be the ostrich and progressively be eroded by your competitors. When we look at how it materializes itself, what we see is even like simple things like use of social channels and social media, which is very prevalent in Saudi, can be used to make better risk decisions. You know, if you look at Facebook, Twitter, Google Analytics, you can find trends on various businesses. That's an example of a coffee house. And you can therefore decide on their relative business strength and riskiness. So it's really a reality which needs to be understood for you to better manage your business. And what we've seen is when you're able to really look at your business and understand what information can do to it as opportunities as threats, you can really benefit. And what's important is to really understand it and look at each part of your business and where would it be impacted. Here we have the examples of insurance with telematics and GPS, and SME lending using the social medias to gather advanced risk analytics. And essentially, if you're a business leader and if you're trying to understand how information can help you make better decisions, how it can change the way you approach your business, we essentially see 4 or 5 big steps. The first is to size the liabilities. Information will change the way you do business, and what's important is where and how much. How will it impact you? Then, 2 is identify the opportunities. Where can you benefit from the new information age to make better decisions? 3 is value the assets, because as we say, you have a lot of data in the organization, sometimes more than you know. Sometimes you're not harnessing it properly. And so it's to understand what you are armed with to face those liabilities and minimize them and to capture the opportunities. Then evaluate your potential partners, like Thomson Reuters or others. How can they help you really make the best of the opportunities at hand and minimize the liabilities which you're facing? And based on which, develop an information strategy. So sizing the liabilities essentially is trying to understand your business from an information point of view. How likely is it going to be impacted by the change in information landscape, and how much is it at risk? And so what we've done here is map a series of activities for banks, for instance, and how big the risk is and how likely the impact is. Once you know that, you know where your business is going to be most impacted. You can do that for any business. And then the second thing to understand is how will it change the relative strength of your competitors, both in terms of likelihood of change and impact, so that you can be prepared to react, defend, and conquer. We've looked at how, in the financial services space, for instance, opportunities can be found through this new age of information to make better decisions and capture new business. And essentially, we found thousands across all activities: retail, mortgages, credit cards, corporate banking, investment banking, etc. It's everywhere. But at the end of the day, for financial services, as for any industry, we found that those opportunities fall in 5 categories. The first is to have a true measure of the value of your business, the value of your customers, the value of customer satisfaction. Where are you today? And information is a key tool that will allow you to really understand and therefore drive your business as a manager. The second area is around client servicing. How well are you succeeding in serving your client in terms of timeliness, accuracy, frequency? The third is around offering. How tailored are you offering to your client's need? The fourth is understanding their behavior in terms of ability to pay, elasticity, behavior in purchasing. And the last one is around risk and managing it and pricing for it. So you can apply this to any of your businesses. To do that, you need to understand how you're equipped in terms of data, in terms of information within your business. And you always find, and that's again the example of the value chain of various businesses, the customers, the capital markets, insurers and banks, that you're in a nexus of data and a nexus of information from which you can benefit. And the biggest challenge we see is businesses within that nexus are often run from a data environment as silos. It's very difficult for an organization without advanced analytics, without the right support or the right internal frameworks to really leverage that for the whole organization. And here we take the example of payment and deposit information within a bank and how actually it can help your banking operation. You do better at insurance in terms of understanding your customer needs and their coverage needs, in terms of corporate banking to understand the financial health and need of your customers through the payments of their customers. And so what's important for you to reflect on is what do you have and how are you using it? Because very often you'll find that information is used in a siloed way when it can be broadened within your organization. I'll skip this page, but what's important also to understand is you're not alone. And there are a lot of partners, but also competitors harnessing this data. Here what you see is an overall map of various players in the information space who can compete or help you. And then decide what you want to do. I think there's no denying, as you've seen, that we now live in an age of increased complexity, where there's a deluge of data, where decisions are more complex than ever, and where information is critical to make the right decisions. And so you could concede and say, well, yeah, tough, I cannot compete, I want to minimize my losses. I'll never be able to master information. The second thing you can do is buy. You'll find providers who will help you buying selectively the right information you need and making it available to serve your needs. The third thing is to invest. Really incubate, launch new businesses which rely on superior information. The fourth is collaborate. Team up with other businesses, with associations, chamber of commerce, analytics providers to really create a better understanding of your business and of your information and therefore succeed. The fifth way is the minor. Really embrace it and deep dive in your proprietary information. You know more about your business and your client than you believe. It's a matter of making it actionable. The other is the technologist, or the geek. So patent, develop, really make it a business within your business. Information can become a business line as CT envisage. And Thomson Reuters is a clear example that you can become very big, very profitable, successful company for information. The inventor is the last way, finding new ways to use technology and information. That requires very strong analytics. The other choice you have is the ostrich. You just ignore it. But in the end, you will lose, is our belief. So, as we were saying, just coming back to the beginning of this presentation, I believe it is very clear today that we are in an area where mastering information to make decisions is critical. It's more challenging than it was, but you're in an environment where you have at hand and you have within reach the right partners, the right information sources that can help you really succeed in taking your business to the next level and not just being threatened by this new environment, but embracing it and capturing the opportunities from it. Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning. My name's Aaron Fairchild and I'm responsible for desktop product sales for Thomson Reuters for Middle East and North Africa, basically information products. And I'm going to be hosting the second part of our event this morning, which is going to be presentations from various parts of the information provider or information consumer community, followed by which we will address four questions with the panelists contributing their thoughts to each of those. So first of all, what I will do is I will introduce you to our four panelists. They will each in turn come up and present their thoughts from their angle, and then we will tackle the four questions that we have prepared. So just to introduce the panelists, it's an honor to have both colleagues and third parties represented on our panel today. From other divisions outside mine within Thomson Reuters and Zawiya, which is now a Thomson Reuters company, from financial institutions and from another information provider in SAS. The panelists are from SAS, Mr. Karel Badenhorst, Head of Technology Practice for Middle East, North Africa. From Zawiya, Mr. Mohammed Mahmoud. From Samba, Dr. Dehnan Khosrow, and Ms. Annabelle Griffiths from Thomson Reuters Intellectual Property and Science Division. So first of all, if I could welcome Annabelle to come up and present her thoughts, please.
Assalamu alaikum. That's my only Arabic. It's a pleasure to be with you here this morning. As Aaron said, I'm from the Intellectual Property and Science Division of Thomson Reuters. So we look at information from a very different perspective, from a scientific perspective, a research and development perspective. And that's where I'm really going to address you from this morning. But there's a lot of things that we've learned as we've gone through our scientific research that is applicable to any business as well. I'm also going to show you some examples of how this scientific research is working within Saudi Arabia and the improvements that we're seeing in Saudi Arabia as a whole within the region as well. So just as a backup, first of all, just to put this in a global context here, that there is more money being spent on research and development at the moment in the world than there has been previously in other time periods. And it's expected that will grow. In the next 20 years, it's expected that will expand. So R&D spend at the moment is approximately $1.4 trillion. By 2030, it's expected to be $2.3 trillion. And a lot of that is coming from the emerging, the developing economies, and also from China, and also expected from the US as well. In terms of the researchers, obviously if you have more research and development, you have to have more scientists, you have to have more researchers. And again, it's expected that in the next 20 years, the number of researchers worldwide will double as well to around about 16 million. Intellectual property is another area which is growing consistently year on year as people are discovering, innovating and realising that they have to protect what they are inventing. And this is happening on a global scale as well. And finally, industry in general. I come from a pharma background, and in the pharma industry there's a lot of companies that are laying off research and development staff. They're laying off functions within their company, but at the same time they're looking outward. They're using information to identify academic institutions globally who are doing unique and niche research, and research that will benefit them, and they are collaborating with them. So they are losing on the one hand, but they're gaining by looking outwards and using the information to make decisions and to make strategic decisions that will help their businesses. So let's look now at Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia is a knowledge economy. Okay, it's growing. It's focusing on becoming a knowledge economy, and there are some challenges with that. So if we look at that from a government perspective, first of all, you've got to understand the landscape. What is our position as Saudi Arabia in the world? How can we benchmark our research output and our quality? And then how do we determine where we fund? Where do we put the investment? What are our priorities here? What are the key technologies that we are strong in, and how can we best fund those? And then finally, if we're going to fund something, how are we going to measure that impact? How are we going to really figure out whether what we funded is making a difference in the world? So you've got to be able to take information and be able to analyse all of these three questions in a way that is intelligent and makes sense. So what I'm going to show you now is a couple of examples of ways in which we're able to do that. So let's look first of all at understanding the landscape. This is a chart showing the countries in the Arabian, Persian and Turkish Middle East, of which we class Saudi as one of those. And this is the publication rates for scientific literature. And you see here, this is from the year 2000 up to the year 2012, which is the latest full year of data that we have. And what you see here is in the bright green line, Saudi Arabia is tracking at a very high rate. Since the year 2000, the growth rate has been huge. And in fact, in 2012, Saudi Arabia has overtaken Egypt in terms of scientific output. So this is showing a great deal of improvement on the publications that are coming out of Saudi Arabia. But it's one thing to know this, but then we've got to understand, well, are those publications making an impact? How do we know that they're actually being used and referenced worldwide? So there's another metric that we need to put into this as well, and that's what we call the citation metric, where we track who is using this information. If we have a paper, a scientific paper in water technology, who is tracking, who is using that and referencing that paper globally, and how are they moving that research forward? So we can do this using the citation rates. And what we can see here is in this quite busy slide is, again, Saudi Arabia is in green, but you'll note here as well that there is a trend up in the citation rates. Now, overall, this region of the world, if you compare it globally, okay, the rate of citation is relatively small. So for Saudi Arabia in 2000, their citation rate was 0.44 if you compare it to world output. By 2012, that had risen to 0.5. Now that doesn't seem like a lot, but you've got to put this in context with the number of scientific articles that are coming out of Saudi Arabia as compared to the thousands that are coming out of say, the USA. So that is actually a very good and a strong indicator of an upward performance. It's a strong indicator that the research that is being done and published within Saudi Arabia is, on a global scale, being recognised more and more widely. So now let's delve into how do we decide what to invest in? How does a government decide what they're going to fund? Let's look at some patenting activity here. This chart is showing the Saudi patent filing activity for the last 10 years. 2012 is an incomplete year at the moment because the patent filing process is approximately an 18-month process, so we won't yet see the true impact of 2012 yet. But you can see here that in 2010 they reached over 200 new inventions from Saudi Arabia. Again, a very large jump from where you have been in previous years. So we know that there is more activity with innovation, with commercialising innovation, with protecting innovation. But let's drill that down again. What are the areas that are being innovated in? So up here we've got that breakdown now. So this is the patents, but we're breaking them down now by the different technical categories. So you can see here that the core fields that we're seeing activity in are electronics and communications, information technology, petrochemical, and material science as well. One of the other emerging technology areas is water technology. And I'll show you a couple of slides that illustrate that water technology as well. But this is how we start to break down that information, so you can start making decisions on it and start deciding where are the technology areas that we are strong in, who is working in those areas, who are they collaborating with, and is that the area that we should be looking to fund. So this is a heat map of the world. And it's looking at a very particular area of water technology, membrane desalination. So what we're looking at here is the areas that have the countries that have the brightest colours are most active when it comes to publishing scientific literature about membrane desalination. So as you would expect, the USA is very high. China is also very high, but you'll notice as well that the countries in the Middle East as well are showing darker colours too. So they are active in this area of water technology. Australia as well. So it's all countries that you would expect in that aspect. So then what we can do is take that and look at it and say, well, who are the institutions that are responsible for this? Who are the ones that are actually doing the research? And you'll see here what we can identify now is the institutions with the highest impact research. So these are the ones that are highly cited in what they do. And you'll note here that this is a snapshot of 2010. You'll note here that there are two Saudi Arabian universities sitting within that list as well. King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals and King Abdullah University, I think that's Kaust behind there, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. So we can immediately identify who those individuals are, and we can start to make decisions now about who we're going to fund for certain areas of technology. So let's move on to measuring the impact. Once we've identified those universities, we need to have a look at them in a little bit more depth. So we start to look at that information and drill it down a little bit. Here we've got some Saudi Arabian universities at the top left. And at the bottom left here we have another heat map which again breaks down into the categories of where they are active and allows us to have a closer look not only at the whole technology areas that they're active in, but we can drill that back down to the papers they've published. So therefore we can identify individuals within that as well. We can identify and look at how their citations, you can publish a lot of papers, but are they actually cited? Are people actually using that research? So by starting to use our information like this, we can start to take actionable decisions on that. We can start to make very strategic decisions about where we are going to put our funding, where is it going to have the most impact. Here again is another view of this. This is a sort of a dashboard view of one of the universities within Saudi Arabia. So we see here immediately the amount of funding that they're receiving from the two different funding bodies from Saudi Arabia. We see what their faculty information is like. The premise being that if they have a high ratio of faculty members to students, it allows them more time to be able to deal with research and development, to therefore publish papers. We look at in the middle section there, the publications and the patent information. We can see the improvement year on year in the activity within those two different areas. And then we can start to look at the impact of that in the top right by looking at the citations. But also, more importantly, we start to break down the areas, the breakdown of publications. Where are these publications? What areas of science are they in, and the technologies related to the patents as well. So measuring the impact is incredibly important. Being able to decide, to discern right from the start, we have funded this particular area of water technology, or we have funded this particular area of medical science, and what has happened to that funding. And this is something that is easy to do with information, but there is a lot of information out there, so it's sometimes hard to get right. But let's say we start with the grants information, either directly from a government or from a publicly available source of information. And that grant is then used to do research, which is used to publish papers. In this particular example, a basic scientific or biotechnology piece of literature is published, and it results in a biomarker, a mention of a biomarker, something that is relevant, and then picked up and identified further downstream as being relevant for a particular disease area. And then that trains back into the literature again. It's then perpetuated through. And that's how we start to measure that impact and to see what's really happened and track the funding as it's going through. So, from a corporate or an institution perspective, challenges facing knowledge economies are actually quite similar to what I've just described to you from a government perspective, and the same types of tools and information can be used, but in a very different way. And I've listed some of those information, these pieces here. So, if we're asking the question, how do our institutions and businesses become world class? Well, you have to use that scientific information, that patent information, that literature information. You have to reach out and identify who are the global authorities in specific research, and how am I going to interact with them? How can I collaborate with them? And then how can I benchmark our performance, the performance of my institution, of my company. So it's using those same examples that I've just shown you, but looking at it from a different perspective. In terms of developing and accelerating business innovation, looking at that whole landscape of understanding, if I'm looking at a specific area of water technology, is it trending? Is it something that is moving upwards because it's important, or is it plateauing? Are we finding that this technology is actually old? And then finally, how do we protect our innovations? How do we protect and commercialise on our inventions? And this is where the IP management and being able to protect and commercialise our IP is so very important as well. So to illustrate this properly, I've got a short 2-minute video here on the end, which is a life science focused video that shows very clearly how the information, this vast quantity of information that we have in the world today, can be used with a very specific outcome. Let me click on this link.
This is the pill that saved my life. Before that, it was manufactured by a pharmaceutical company. And before that, it was discovered by a scientist. What happened in between? Before it was a pill, it was an idea.
While on a research trip to the Amazon, I collected the saliva of the frog species. I discovered that it contained a key protein, and I thought that protein, if synthesized, might someday save millions of lives. Using Thomson Reuters tools, I researched the protein, wrote a paper, and presented it at a symposium
where I was in the audience. We connected and agreed that the idea could make a real difference. So I did a genetic pathway analysis to check the potential of the idea. And I asked product development to find out if another company
was working on the idea. I investigated and found out that there was nothing in the drug pipeline. At least not yet. So, I contracted with Thomson Reuters for a white space research report, which showed me that the idea would have a market. So we developed the idea into a drug, a pill, in fact, and I looked into the regulatory requirements before we tested it successfully. At the same time, we needed a patent.
I conducted global patent research online to help me write the patent application, and my team did trademark research to establish the uniqueness of the pill's name. It became a brand, and we protected it. We marketed and sold the pill around the world and delivered it
to me, and it did. It saved my life.
So I thought that was quite a poignant way to end my presentation and show how information can be used, if you use the right information at the right time and collaborate and link it together to really make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That really was interesting and a very compelling video. Right, next I would like to welcome to the stage Mr. Karl Badenhorst from SAS Institute.
I believe that everyone has the right to make clever decisions. Now, we've seen this morning so far that decision making is a science. Decision making is something that is not a trivial one-person exercise, so we understand that. But the journey I want to take you on this morning is decision making. Why do it? What is it? And the why for me is everyone should be able to be clever. Why do we do decision making? Everyone should look good. So we're going to talk about a couple of concepts today, 3 concepts in whole. The first one is a little game I want us to start with, to show you how important it is to have visual intelligence. Visual intelligence. So the path that you have already chosen with business intelligence, with reporting, that path is not dead. That path is not wasted. However, it needs to be enhanced. And we're going to talk about the enhancement concepts after our little game. Let's start with a game. Visualization is extremely important. Here's 3 facts about visual. The eyes. 70% of all sensory receptors are in the eyes. The brain devotes 25% of its processing power to vision. If I can visually see something, like I'm seeing you right now, like you are seeing me right now, 25% of your processing power is being used to assimilate this information that I am sharing with you, to look at me and to form an opinion. That is a huge amount, 25%, a quarter of it. Visual displays support cognition by providing aids for memory. That fancy sentence says, if I show you a picture and I ask you about the picture after this meeting, you will be able to tell me about that picture. If I show you words, you will not be able to tell me what I showed you. So let's play a little game to test this theory, because this is the first theory of intelligent decision making. Close your eyes for me for a minute. I'm going to describe to you in words a car. Everyone knows a car, the concept of a car, what it is supposed to do for us. So listen to this description. Close your eyes. I'm going to close my eyes too. It's going to be very short. This car is beautiful. It is incredibly beautiful. It is red and it's black. And it's got some blue. And it's got black tires and it's got beautiful big rims. And it's fast. Open your eyes. Have you got a picture of that car in your mind? Will you be able to explain to me this picture so that I can understand it and explain it to the next person and form exactly the same picture? You will not. With words, it's impossible, because this is what I described to you. Did anyone see this? You and saw it. But now that I show you the picture, 50 people in the room, when we walk out of here, will be able to tell exactly the same story. Visualization is the most important thing you can do for storytelling. If you want to tell a story, if you want to make anyone in your organization intelligent, make him shine, make him clever, how are you going to do it? You're going to start by telling a visual story. Stories are not words. Stories are not my interpretation of words. Stories is our interpretation of a picture. That is number one and the most important. This is my favorite quote in the entire world. It was said in the 1st century after death by a Roman philosopher called Seneca. And he said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You know what I really hate? I hate it when people say when something good happens to me, man, you are so lucky. I'm not lucky. I'm prepared. And the more prepared you are, the luckier you get. It's incredible. So what information, what storytelling, what intelligence is supposed to do for you? It is supposed to make you lucky by making you prepared. So you have to start thinking about how We are, in our organizations, going to start making people lucky. How are we going to do that? 2 simple rules to being lucky using analytics. And analytics is not that big scary thing that sits in the room, that mathematics thing that scared you when you were a child at school. No, analytics is a wonderful thing that is first and foremost going to show you a picture that you can show everyone else, and everyone else understands what you're trying to say. And the more pictures we show, the luckier we get. The more pictures we show, the luckier you get. But these pictures need to be supported by 2 things, 2 rules. Number 1, the first rule of being lucky in storytelling is you need to tell story of analytics and not business intelligence. Big difference. Business intelligence gives you a graphic. Analytics explains to you what you are seeing. Very important. Number 2, it needs to be simple and it needs to grow as your needs grow. It needs to grow with you. So it needs to be scalable. And then I have one request at the end which we will look at, and that is you have to believe in it. I always ask the children that I deal with, my brother's children, my sister's children, etc., especially around this magical time of year, do you believe? Do you believe you are a good boy? Are you going to get a lot of presents? Do you believe in the tooth? You have to believe. Analytics, mathematics, and analytical storytelling is something you have to believe in, because unless you believe in it, you will not do it. We'll look at that. So let's look at these simple concepts. The first thing I want to show you is a little joke. Now I'm going to explain this joke to you. It starts at the beginning, and this lady is on the call with her lady friend, and she's talking about a party. And this lady friend is asking, can my boyfriend come along? And the boyfriend, obviously, he's the guy in the second picture, overhears this conversation, boyfriend, and he says, wait, I am not your boyfriend. And she says, yes, you are, and I will show you you are. And this is the difference between business intelligence and analytics. You need to back up your story. You need to back up what you show. So how does she back this up? She takes a graph and she says, I know that you see more people than just me, but you see me twice as many times as anyone else. So statistically significant, mathematics do not lie. Statistically significant, I show you now that you are my boyfriend, and this is exactly what we want to do with statistical storytelling. Irrefutable. You cannot say that it lies. Mathematics will never lie to you. Analysis will never lie to you. How do we do this? We do it through the analytics life cycle. The analytics life cycle is a very simple process. Green, blue, orange. Green, blue, orange. Green, blue, orange. Every decision we take in the organization, green, blue, orange, what do? Number 1, exploring the story. Exploratory analysis, looking at all of this data and letting the mathematics tell me the story. This car I am seeing, what does it look like? Why does it look like this? How does it work? That's very interesting. I think if I change one aspect of this car, it can go even faster. Is that true or not? And that is the green portion done. I look at it, I see it's a car, it explains all of these issues about the car, and I can ask a question about the future. Will this car go faster if I put a bigger engine in it, yes or no? I don't know yet. But mathematics will now tell me the story, because the blue portion of analytics is building the model. Validating what you think is going to happen actually happens. Irrefutable. Mathematical. Not gut feel, not subjective, mathematical. And mathematically, we build this model that says, if you increase the engine size on this vehicle, not only will it go faster, but it will use less fuel. That is wonderful. And that is the blue portion done. Now, I have this knowledge, but I don't need the knowledge. You need the knowledge. So I need to make sure that this knowledge gets to you. Orange. I need to make sure that you now get this future-based report about this car in the easiest format that you can. Who has an iPad? Or a Samsung tablet? Or a phone that has capabilities to go on the internet? All of us. So why would I want a paper-based report if I'm walking around with a phone? I want that thing on my phone. I want to walk around and say, do you know how much money I made this week? Let me show you on my phone. There's my KPIs for making money. There, it's updated every day for us. No problem. So, if you want to make analytical-based decisions, and this is the only scary slide I have, you have to have mathematics in place. Mathematics starts with statistics at the bottom of the puzzle, and then we move clockwise to data mining. Data mining is the ability to look into the future intelligently, using mathematics and not gut feel. Then we look at forecasting. Forecasting is the ability to look into the future on a timeline. Text analytics is the ability to use all these sources of information at my disposal to make a decision. Not just the normal databases that I have available, but I also want to know about things that's happening outside of my area of responsibility. If I launch a new credit card, if I launch a new phone, I want to know what the people are saying about this phone on Twitter, on Facebook, etc. So we need to be able to use that information, and text analytics helps us do that. And then optimization, because not only do I want to make mathematical-based decision, but I want to make the best decision that I can now. And what are my constraints? Money, time, and people. Money, time, and people. 3 constraints. So I want to apply my constraints to my decision so that not only am I making a mathematical decision, but I'm making the best one I physically can. Look at this. Unless I have mathematics backing up my decision, I call it joke analytics. You know what a joke is. A joke is something that is funny, untrustworthy, and just there to entertain. Now the question is, do you do joke analytics or do you do real analytics, true analytics, something that's going to give you the warm feeling that you are making the right decision? This is an example that I did with a friend of mine. Who uses Facebook? Who has used Facebook before? Who knows about this horrible thing called Facebook? Facebook is an organization who generates huge amounts of data, and they claim that they make analytical-based decisions. I decided to test this claim because I did not believe them. So I did the following. The picture of the person on the bottom right is my friend Chris. Now Chris is 52 years old, he's a very good friend of mine, he lives in Florida. And he also has an interest in big data, so we did this together. I had him take the most scary picture of himself that he possibly could. And we created one profile based on that picture. And that profile was Chris as a single 52-year-old man living with his mother. That is the profile we put. So we put all the information, 52 years old, unmarried, living with my mother, all of this. And we waited for And we did one outlier. The outlier was I had him friend his 14-year-old son on this profile. That's the only activity we did, friended his son. And we waited for one batch run for the update of the Facebook analytics to go over. And the next day when we logged in, guess what Facebook gave me as friend potentials? You know when you log in and it says you might be interested in meeting this person, you might be interested. That is analytics supposed to make that decision for you. Guess what Facebook gave me as friend-based decisions? 2 13-year-old girls and 1 14-year-old boy. My profile says I am a 52-year-old man living with my mother. The perfect pedophile profile. Yet, Facebook gives me friend request for 2 13-year-old girls and 1 14-year-old boy. Am I doing real analytics or am I doing joke analytics? Because real analytics will take you further. It will make you intelligent. It will take you forward. It definitely will. The second thing, simplicity and scalability. The ability to grow. Albert Einstein was a true genius. I really like this guy, reading books about him. I love this quote. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Are you expecting people to do things that is not within their capability? How does this fit into the analytics picture? Analytics and mathematics need to make everyone clever. Irrespective, it doesn't matter where I am from a mathematical capability. Am I a PhD or am I an analyst or am I a report consumer? It shouldn't matter. However, if we do decision making with analytics correctly, we should be able to make everyone shine, not just the CEO, not just the PhDs, but everyone in the organizations. And it should be simple. There's the most simple pie chart you will ever see. This is how simple analytics should make your output. Complex, 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 complex subjects. Dumbed down to everyone's level so that everyone can shine. Everyone can be a storyteller. Everyone can be a collaborator at the different levels that analytics provide. Data is the big problem at the moment. Everyone is scared of this big data concept. Let me explain to you something. If you put the process of analytical decision making down, the capability to put the process on any volume of data, any complexity of data, any type of data, it's irrelevant. As long as you follow and decide in your heart you are going to follow analytics as a process, the data, the big data, the complexity of the data, all of those things have been managed for 27 years, 28 years. Those problems are already solved. The biggest challenge facing you right now is, are you going to make analytical-based decisions? And then from a flexibility point of view, if you do this right, if you look at this picture, this lady at the bottom is the business people. The guy in the tree is IT. Now, in an ever-changing business environment, because the business environment is not static, the poor guy in the tree, IT, need to constantly hop around, and depending on where that lady sits or stands and looks up at the apples, she's going to today require those 4 apples, and when she moves over here, she's going to require these 3 apples, and when she sits over here, she sees 4 extra apples here. It's going to change. So you cannot spend a year implementing analytics. You cannot spend a year waiting for your answers, because you know what? By the time that you get the answers that you planned for, they are out of date. They have changed. They have changed. Because tomorrow, the question I am going to ask from Talnia is, how many accidents were there last night with the rain? They need to immediately provide that to me. And not only give me the statistic, they need to tell me exactly how that statistic was derived. What was the exact circumstances down to the lowest level, so that I can show you, Mr. CEO, the picture that you will be able to interpret and explain. Business change every day. Scalability is not just volumes of data. It is time. You need to have the flexibility to move constantly. And then the last thing, you have to believe. You have to believe in what you see. The biggest challenge with decision making today is, do you believe, do you trust what you are getting out? There are different levels of trust that we help you with. Once we decide we're going on this journey together, we take hands and we move forward. And this is the levels we want to attain. Immature means I am like a child. I am like a child. I know nothing. I am doing reporting on a monthly, daily and weekly basis. From an analytics perspective, I am a child, I'm immature. The next level up is aware. I know there's something called mathematics, but you know what? I'm a bit scared of it. Frankly, I'm a bit scared of it. I know it's used somewhere in the organization, but I don't really care. Number 3, informed. There are certain parts of the business that use analytics, like marketing, understanding the customer segments, and doing the product mix analysis based on that customer segment. I know it's being used there. Or risk, or anti-money laundering, or stuff like that. I know it's there in the organization, and we can start using that as a leverage to grow it out and attain the 4th level, which is analytically reliant. So we start organizing the organization into talent groups. And remember, we are not all fish that has to climb trees. There's different levels, and we organize it. And then the 4th and the 5th level, the last level, is the innovation level. And this is where I start using the analytics life cycle, the process that I put down in every decision I make. And this is where you can start getting benefit from analytics and the analytics life cycle. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Carol, and thank you, Annabelle, for that's, I think, 2 of the most engaging, informative and entertaining presentations I've seen this year. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, so I think we've got time to give everyone a 5-minute comfort break. So if we keep it to 5 minutes, you can go out, there's refreshments outside, but let's try and be back here, by 1:30, and then we'll resume with 2 more engaging presentations. Thank you. We will find him in a minute. We're just about to be plunged into complete darkness. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, so while the last, in the interest of time, while the last few people are filing in, I would like to hand the podium over to our next esteemed guest. It's a pleasure to welcome from one of our great partners in the region, Dr. Denard Cosgrove.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. لا أتكلم عربي منيح, therefore I'm going to speak English. I want to thank each and every one of you to have stayed with us, and you're here to listen what I want to say. That's why I'm going to be very short. And also it's very difficult to second what Annabelle and Carl did. But on other side of the business, I make decisions based on analytics, and I have to live with it. If I buy euro and it goes down, I lose money. And at the end of the year, I cannot show my management pictures. And the only thing they believe is my P&L, profit and loss. Now, I've told everybody that if you and your boss agree on everything, then one of you is not needed, right? So it's always good to have a little bit of a devil's advocate. So with all due respect, I loved what Carl said, but I want to poke some fun at you. By the way, I think I can because I have a PhD in mathematics from Berkeley and a PhD in statistics from Stanford, and I've taught optimization at Columbia University. So I know the whole circle, and I use analytic for everyday work. Graphic, I agree with him, graphics is 100% one of the most efficient ways that you can display data. But human beings, they have some built-in biases about pictures. And the reason is that how we evolved. See, when we were our great-great-grandfathers, when they were in jungles, they had to react to certain shapes, certain way, because there was a danger of animals, right? So in other words, we have certain biases. That's why if you look at the book's called How to Lie with the Statistics, you can see that you can somehow manage the message that you want to send, right? One last poke, and then I'm going to get to my thing. A person who made excellent decisions and didn't use any kind of mathematics and analytics was Steve Jobs, who saved Apple. Do you know the previous thing was Diesel and that guy, Italian guy, right? The stock was $13 when they brought Steve Jobs, and he decided to go with these computers with different colors, etc., etc. Now the stock is $560 after 3 times a split. And he never made any decision. He had a gut feeling. And God gives some people this talent. Do you know what I'm saying? Some people are just talented by the nature of God. But what Carl said is 99% correct. But like anything else, I've been in this business for a long time, and I've been in academics for a long time. So I take everything with a grain of salt. Now, these high techs worry me, but I'm going to make 3 comments. One is that, are the potential of data mining, machine learning, big data real or not? The second one, the caveats. I always have a question mark. No matter if you say 2 plus 2 is 4, in finance we say, what is 2 plus 2? If you are selling, it's 5, and it's buying, it's 3. So 2 plus 2, even 2, you should always have a question mark. Never certain. And finally, the policy implications. How much time do I have, Aaron? 10 minutes. I'll stop at 10 minutes because I always tell my friends, if you cannot manage your time, how can you manage risk? So exactly at 10 minutes I'm going to finish. Now, are the potentials real? Let me give you a story. I'm much older than all of you. 30 years ago, something like 25, 30 years ago, there was this artificial intelligence and expert system. After Feigenbaum at MIT had perceptron, etc., the people say, you know what, expert systems are going to replace everything. And it fizzled. However, is data mining and machine learning real? I would say yes. And to see their application, just go to Amazon.com, how they market. Look at the recommended book. Based on your profile, they make recommendation. And between you and I, out of 10 times that I go to Amazon, at least 5 times I buy something, because they have really fine-tuned that what kind of books I read and I buy. They never recommend a book about how to raise a child or what to do during pregnancy. Right? Now, the other thing is that, so I'm going to give you some of the applications that essentially that segue to what Annabelle said. Customer retention. I'm not going to elaborate to you during the QA, I might do it. Look at what they did at Telenor is a mobile phone company in Scandinavia, how to retain their customers. Do you know what I'm saying? You have got Zain, you have got Mobile, you have got STC. How to make sure that the guy doesn't switch, right? I'm not going to elaborate how they did it, but if there's interest during the QA, I'm going to elaborate on it. Extension of credit. Whether I give somebody credit card, how much, or whether I give him a mortgage. That's a typical application of data mining. Trading, I do it every day. All the analytic, high frequency trading, etc., is based on data mining. What was the pattern? If gold went up, this went up, what's the chance that S&P is going to go down? Again, as Carl said, it is the statistics. I'm not 100% sure, but it's 80% sure that this trade will be good, right? And if I lose money, I cannot show pictures. I'm going to be penalized for it. Risk management, all the stress testing, etc., even to human resources. Which one of your employees is at risk of leaving the company? By looking at the profile of the people who left your company, okay? Let me come out of finance, go to healthcare. Everybody knows the application to healthcare, right? They can have ICs that can monitor you all the time, and if there is a risk, etc. Or if you have a ailment, they can look at all over the world and look at the people with your profile and decide what kind of a drug is most effective on you. To give you an example, high blood pressure. There are millions of pills for high blood pressure. Which one fits you? Before, they used to trial and error. They used to give you this, and they measure your high blood pressure in a week. Oh, say, I think this doesn't fit you. Do you know what I'm saying? Etc. Let me give you an example about the healthcare, more or less healthcare, that has become a big business in the US. The former wife of somebody who is an owner of Google, he has a company. You send him a little bit of your saliva. They send you a capsule. You put something in your mouth, like a ear cleaner. Take your saliva, put it in it, pour something, and send it to them. I think they charge you $30 or something like that. Then after, I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the human genome has been mapped. Then they say, you know what? Your hereditary, suppose you are in Saudi Arabia, your hereditary, say 50% is from Yemen, 30% is from, say, Turkey, say 20% is from Tashkent. And people with this kind of hereditary, they have a high risk of, for example, heart problem. But not the risk of, for example, strokes. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's become a big business. And my wife forced me to do it last time when I was home. Probably she wants to make sure she has life insurance on me or something. Let me indicate another part, which is a social issue, particularly is important in Middle East and Afghanistan, etc. See, you can have the profile of the people that are most amenable to become addict, or after you cure them, that's the most probable that they will relapse. So you know what to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay. So, the answer to this question, are potentials real? The answer is yes. And the real indications are what Annabelle said and also Carl mentioned. Now we come to the part of caveat. Are we in information age or data age? Right. Not all relations are valuable. To give you an example, when you send a bunch of data, say you send it to Silicon Valley, you look at bits of data and find the correlation or nearest neighbor, etc., etc. Suppose they come up with this result for Tamimi. You know what? If people buy something that's worth more than 600 or 700 riyal, usually if they pay cash, one of the notes is a $500 riyal. Is it interesting? More or less. It is, like any kind of note. But can you make money out of it? Is it of any importance? The answer is no. So not all relations are useful, and not all these relations are knowledge. The other thing that I want to emphasize is that the importance of culture and customs. Something that was done at Target in US, I really doubt that we can do it in Saudi Arabia, and it will be received properly. To give you an importance why custom and culture is important, and somebody who does the data mining should at least know what in artificial intelligence we call domain knowledge. He knows what he's doing. He's not looking at just bits and just trying to find the nearest neighbor. To give you an example, suppose you want to have a very relaxed return policy. Usually if you buy something from any store, you can return it within 3 days, right? You must say, you know what, if I extend it for 30 days, I'll get a lot of customers. The customers say, I'm going to go to here, because I'm not going to test it in 3 days, but in a week, etc. The impact of this would be totally different for stores in Mecca and for stores in Riyadh. Because in Mecca, most of your customers are transient, who are people who are on Umrah, etc. And if the guy buys something and goes back, he's not going to bring it back to you. Now, the only way you can do this is to know the custom and the culture. And you wouldn't believe how many times people have got the data from us, sent it to their brains in another country, and the guy has come up with some result. I say, it doesn't make sense. And I know what the result is. To give you another example, when it rains, I still have 3 minutes, okay. When it rains, people drive slowly in Riyadh, right? Anybody who lives in Riyadh, and when it rains, you see more accidents. They are not huge accidents, but you see a bumper to bumper, right? If you send the data of speed and number of accidents, do you know what they give you? Slower speed causes more accident in Riyadh. I'm serious. Without realizing that they have a common variable, which is the rain. Right? What happened? Okay. Now, the third one is the risk of paradigm shift. Suddenly something changes, and unless you are on the ground and you understand it, you have a bunch of wrong results till you realize there is something wrong. To give you an answer, suppose you come up with a trading strategy of buying and selling euro against Saudi Arabia. Whatever it is, you look at it and say, when euro went up 3 days in a row, etc., it's going to go down, etc., against Saudi Arabia. But all your information and data and your knowledge, the underpinning is that the dollar and Saudi riyal is pegged. If the peg breaks down, your historical data is still the same. And you make so many wrong decisions, right, till you get stopped out by the risk. You know, again, I want to emphasize, the paradigm shift and local knowledge is very important. You cannot get a bunch of data and send it to, say, Hong Kong, and they come up with the result. And actually, if there is a time, I'll explain it to you. In fact, I saw something like that. And a GCC bank did this mistake. And then they realized that, what happened to this? Okay. First, their decision was wrong. And also, when you make a wrong decision, you get adverse selection. Other people come in. You know, essentially, your data was based on this population. Based on that, you say, you know what? If I offer this, there will be more people doing it. But these more people that come in are totally different from this. They are people who are savvier, right? I'll discuss it with you next time. Correlation and causality, I have only 2 minutes left. What keeps me up at night is unknown, not known unknown. What do I mean? See, if you have historical data, right, everything is based on history. Let me give you an example. Again, all my examples are simple. It's just to elaborate on the whole thing. You have heard about shale oil and tight oil. Do you know what I'm saying? By fracking, they're going to get gas and oil much cheaper, right? What is the impact on oil prices? This is unknown. I really don't know if WTI is going to go up or down. But it is a known unknown. I know that's going to impact WTI. By how much, I don't know. What is unknown is the tsunami in Japan that impacted the electrical system that stopped the cooling system of the reactor. These are the unknown unknowns that as a trader keeps me up at night. What could happen? When I have a trade on WTI between you and I, I'm not worried about, I have done my calculation and analytics about the impact of fracking, etc., etc. My main worry is that a crazy guy is going to do crazy things somewhere, and the price of oil goes to the roof. Okay. Finally, policy implication. Either you guys are essentially chiefs of businesses in Saudi Arabia, or your bosses are, right? Essentially, you owe it to yourself and your country that to go to universities, KFUPM, Prince Sultan University, King Faisal University, King Saud University, and tell the rectors we need data science. At Columbia, that I'm a faculty, we have a big building and faculty called data sciences, right? And you can train them. And this is the best employment, both for men and women, high paying. People who become data scientists, right? And you should give projects to universities that together with SAS and Reuters together, they can explore different possibilities for the businesses in Saudi Arabia. And finally, there is no excuse that in 10 years, if you focus on it and you have patience, you can be a leader, because what it needs is financial capital and human capital. Financial capital for data mining is servers and systems that, for example, SAS can provide, right? And some data that Reuters can provide. And you have also the human resources. But you have to keep at it, right? And in 10 years, you can be the leaders in GCC. And finally, the range of application is huge. People should also talk to the government to apply it to social, entertainment, and all the other aspects of Saudi life. Unfortunately, I don't have any YouTube to put at the end. Perhaps next time I'm going to ask Annabelle and with all the energy that Carl has come together, probably they can do a nice finale. The energy comes from him, and the nice YouTube comes from her. I just sit down where I'm sitting. Thank you very much for listening. I'm on time. So, shall I buzz off or what?
Yeah. Don't buzz off.
Okay.
Not too far anyway. Just take a seat. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Khosrow, for another educational and highly entertaining presentation. Okay. So, and now it's our chance to welcome our last speaker, who's going to bring his unique perspective of SMEs in the region. It's Mohammed Mahmoud from our own very own Zawiya.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to start with a story. Back in 2003, you can actually say 1999 if you want to say, the co-founder of Zawiya was sitting there in Deutsche Bank, and he was trying to search a little information about a specific company here in the Middle East. And guess what? This was the starting point of Zawiya. And I have been there with them since the start of the Middle East, actually in the Middle East itself. We had that simple and trivial vision, basically, which is making the Middle East a better world to live and prosper, basically. It was simple, but was bigger than Zawiya itself. And now we are hopefully aiming to make this dream come true with our basically Thomson Reuters acquisition. Right? So the starting point here is decision making actually is not just I'm going to make a decision. It's actually about a choice. You are choosing between different basically options that you have, and you need to basically ask yourself with numbers, statistics, analytics, and also your gut feeling sometimes. And that's why I know I wanted to start with Henry Mintzberg. He's actually having a lot of theories in decision making, actually. And if you think about it, it's like three options: thinking first, doing first, and seeing first. I want to ask you guys, who actually choose one of these? Who actually follow one of these schools? I think it's a mix, right? So if I ask you, when you get married, which one of these schools you would follow? Are you gonna do an analysis on it? Thank you for that. Exactly. So if you are doing a new business idea, you're probably going to go for doing first. Sometimes you do a little maybe of thinking, right? But you're not going to have a lot of data and a lot of analysis, and that's the entrepreneur lifestyle. If the other way, or you can say thinking first, which is what SAS can do for us, is really deep analyticals and thinking. And that's why moving in the value curve, this slide is, I think, can summarize all the beautiful, actually, information we've got today. It starts with data, and then you build up with information. You gain the knowledge that can give you insights, and then building the future, right? And that's basically the value curve of innovation. So if you think about it, you have a bit of data gathering activities, and then you're being creative about what data you've captured and how do you actually make meaning out of it. Okay, so here's a quick one, challenges with actually data gathering. It's like, let's get all the information that we can get, and let's see what we're going to do with it later. That approach can work, but as we said, data can have an expiry date. It can expire at any point of time, right? So what do you need to collect? how are you going to manage data, and what kind of data you need actually to organize this, and how to access it is very important. And finally, what meanings you can bring out of this. Okay, so it's basically data collections, then analyzing the data, and then reflect and revise, plan, and basically implement. And the way I came up with these little things, which looks trivial to a lot of us, is for SMEs, the world is totally different. You're talking to about small and medium enterprises. Okay? So if one apply this into what innovative solution can a business take to serve a customer needs, looking at an SME or a business today, it's really complex, the relationships that they have. How can you capture all of this information in one system, right? And that's basically, although you can get a lot of data, but if I am a business owner today, I would love to get a system like this to tell me how my customers are doing, what is the performance of my employees, how can I actually get quality from suppliers, what research institutes can I do. I can include into this diagram also the government, support, and everything else. If I have a system in this world that can give me this for a small business, I'm buying tomorrow, right? So that's why I wanted to put this from an SME or small business perspective. Why they are important? Because if I look at this as like one school of innovation, the outcome-driven innovation, if you categorize the customer needs into importance and satisfaction, you ask the customers a specific question about how he gets a specific job done. Because at the end of the day, whatever we sell is helping a certain person to get a job done. That's as basic as it gets. So decisions that you do in a business is like underserved needs. These are your opportunities. You need to help customers do existing jobs better. So decision is do things differently, right? If it's like served a bit adequately in the market, then you do different things, right? So if I look at it from an overserved, means there's a lot of competition and a lot of many players in the market, then I either disrupt whatever existing, or I should basically come up with a number game. I have too many of them to give me the economy of scale, right? So in a simple term, for any business, you need to systematically collect data and analysis, and become creative about it, supported by somehow evidence and facts, but don't forget your gut feeling. Okay? So we did a quick survey this year with more than 208 small businesses in Saudi and UAE. We wanted to explore how they actually manage their day-to-day activity. And when I say day-to-day activity, we're talking about marketing, sales, HR, recruitment, name it, managing suppliers, everything else that a business would probably need. And before I go in, I just wanted to show you a definition which varies actually between a country to country. So in our Saudi Arabia today, when we say small business is actually less than around 60 employees, and capital of 1 to 5 million SR, Saudi Arabia. Okay, and this definition is a bit coming from the government. Beyond that, we start talking about medium size, and above this is actually a big organization. All right? A lot of the businesses today in Saudi and UAE and the Middle East itself lies into that category, and it's very important for every government today because they are the source of jobs, and they create or attract basically investment from everywhere, right? So we asked them, what we found initially is think going online is complicated. That's what SMEs probably do, and or think. They do not understand the online opportunity. Some of them is if I'm in a construction business, some of them said, I don't really need to be online. He doesn't realize that I could possibly gain more leads or something if I promote myself. They lack time and resources to explore online opportunities, and they have small marketing budgets as usual. Okay? So we did basically, two methodologies, which is very well known with everybody. 25% from Riyadh, 17 from Jeddah, the rest from Dammam and Dubai and Sharjah. And these basically construction, professional services, and financial services, a little bit, you can say, insurance companies that are small, and so on. And we asked them about their communication tools that they use, what market exposure they have, managing employees, customer sales, and everything else. Okay? So, initially, we found out they still resort to manual and personal ways for driving and managing the business. The use of online internet remains quite basic and doesn't go beyond WhatsApp or Skype or anything that any one of us today is using. Use of online tools to manage employees, for example, track their performance and motivate them, is quite weak. So today, let's say, to manage vacations, it's still done by the accountant. And I'll show you examples of what they say. So without taking much time, we went and I took one small example of this study and said, let's explore the CRM as one source of decision making. Because if you don't know your customer, you cannot make any decisions of the future of your company. But let's say you cannot monitor what customers are buying and so on. And it's economy of scale as well. Okay, so the samples of their replies, they said, in CRM there are so many features. Some of them have CRM as a tool, but they said too many features, but till now we didn't use them actually. So they bought the investment, they have done the small investment in CRM, but they haven't actually used it properly. So it's no use. Second guy was saying it's a specific way to add an advantage to business, but he said, I can't see it yet. We are a small company, so no need for using CRM. That's basically killed it at all. So they say, they find it useful, but some of them might not have the budget yet. So this is still a problem from their perspective. They know they could be more beneficial to the business itself, but they haven't done anything about it. Okay, so to be specific, we came up with this data, and you see here the personal networking is the most, which is nobody in doubt in that. It's very important, but personal networking is still the old way of doing business, and that's from ages. Okay, they haven't, for example, get Salesforce to manage any CRM and anything. What type of CRM tools they still have? The direct contact is perceived to be the best type of CRM tool for them, the old-fashioned way. Okay, and then this is the distribution between the different sectors we covered. Okay, the key finding is 1 out of 4 enterprises, the small businesses, actually use CRM. That's a big percentage in 208 that we covered. Key barriers is they lack awareness, they lack personal training. They do not see how it can profit the business yet. Okay, so if we raise awareness and help them basically get there, that you need these tools to actually improve the performance of your company, that will be a first step. Then we found also there's barriers to decision making in that sense. It's lack of training and awareness, systems that are actually able to share. It exists in the market, but today they haven't got a chance to explore these things. Outdated technologies, low quality of data, and inaccurate and timing of data collections. So conclusion, to make it quick for you guys, awareness is very critical for such a market, and that's the starting point in order for these guys SMEs actually to grow further than what they have today. In order for us to see the future, I think I'm done with that. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mohammed. So what I'd like to do now is move on to the interactive part. So if I could please ask Sama and Mohammed and Dr. Khosrow and Carl to come and join us at the front here, please. And we're going to pose them some questions. Now, this may be the point that you would also like to interact with these specialists. To interact with these specialists. I think we've been very lucky. I mean, we planned and intended that we would get some diverse points of view this morning, but I must say I'm really happy at how diverse and how different the viewpoints of our speakers have been so far today. So please take the opportunity. If you feel like you want to jump in and ask a question, wave your hand in the air, and then and when I pick you, stand up and shout your question. Okay. So the first question that we're going to pose to the panel today is working on the basis, and gentlemen, you can see the questions on your screens, right? Good. So working on the basis that a private local business has established financial reporting systems. So assuming they have some of the very basic information systems already in place, obviously as they're private, they don't have a need for official reporting. What, in your view, should be the next investment, or should be their next investment in business intelligence, and why? And our first victim today, I think the first person I'd like to put the question to is Carl. What are your thoughts, Carl?
Well, I mean, for me, this is a very easy question because I come from an analytics practice and analytics life cycle. So if the company does not have the ability yet, in this instance, to look forward into the future based on the patterns that has been discussed today, then that is typically where we would start with them from a journey perspective, because that's where you're going to get the most and easiest low-hanging fruits from an analytical perspective. It's just looking at what you have available and seeing whether it's relevant and whether it's actually telling you a story about your future or not, whether it's useful.
So when you go in and, so I mean, obviously you take SAS as a business takes an advisory capacity. And you bring your experience of all the different engagements you've had with other customers across the region. If they were very basic and had no CRM, for example, do you think there are other things before the types of data analytics that you would provide that are more important? Do you find situations where you say, look, what we can offer is great, but really you need to go through steps A, B, and C before you can maximize the value from these tools?
That's a good question and quite interesting, but from my experience, what I have seen is it's not really the system you start with that brings the biggest benefit, but just the fact that you start thinking forward-looking. So you can physically, analytics is not something that is applied to a specific subject area to gain value. Analytics is like this wonderful thing that you plug on anything, and analytics will tell you the story of its usefulness or not. So for me, any data that you have currently, or any data that you want to evaluate against capability or usefulness, or taking the business forward, or benchmarking against near neighbors or other companies in your industry, would be a good starting point. But the most important for me is just start telling the story, and let mathematics isolate for you the story and the patterns that comes from the data that you have available.
Okay. And so do you think, just one last question before I direct the spotlight on someone else, do you think that when you visit customers across the region, that the data that they have collected so far is coherent and useful? I mean, I guess there are many times where people have either gone through long periods of managing processes manually, of not using automation, of not using databases properly, or applied them in a, perhaps used them in a limited or unprofessional way, that in fact the data is not fit for purpose?
Another very good question, and we come up against this not just in Saudi Arabia, everywhere, because remember, we're sitting with legacy systems here that have Arabic-based data collected over time, and the people who developed these systems died in the meantime, or they moved away, no one can access. From our point of view, if it's electronic, it's useful. Because, again, I reiterate, you do not have to know beforehand, if you use analytics, the story that you want from the data. The analytics job is to expose to you the patterns and the story. So you don't need to know beforehand what you want to explore. The analytics job is to show you these patterns. So from my experience, if it's electronic, it will be useful to start telling you the story. And the story, the first part of the story is this relevant and is this useful? Because one of our customers recently said, SaaS, and not just SaaS, I don't want to talk about SaaS, analytics. Analytics does not allow me to always make the right decisions, but it does allow me to make mistakes quicker. So that is the position that I think everyone wants to be in isolating, for instance, if the data is useful or not.
Okay, thank you. So, Mohammed, I want to sort of go back to the beginning question, if you like, and say, and I think I know what your answer is going to be, based on your research. But what's your view on it? What do you think people, they maybe have a Sage or some kind of limited financial reporting system, no need for official reporting. What should they buy?
I think
you have to touch it.
Now it works. Good. Right. It's actually, I don't want to give a very negative view, but I think we still have a problem to solve from the core, which is, as I said, awareness of such tools and benefits. I think what you have established here is they have a financial reporting system, but I can tell you that this system might be still done on an Excel sheet with an accountant. If we're talking that level, then we still have a bigger problem to solve than, let's say, I want to buy the next big, let's say, CRM system. And we're talking about companies that they don't see these valuable yet. They don't see that the business is actually going to benefit from them yet. So if we're talking about the company life cycle, probably as a startup, you wouldn't need all these systems at the beginning, or you might go and find a solution around cloud-based solution that could work for you within budget. So it's actually a matter of awareness. Do I really know that this is going to be beneficial for me? And then the second one is basically the financial resources, means I have the budget to buy this.
So do you think that if let's say an organization here in the region, we'll focus on GCC, not just Saudi, you look at one of these medium-sized private companies, do you think that in your experience they have the skills in-house to tender for, implement, deploy and successfully utilize on a day-to-day basis such a CRM system?
Well, if we ask about CRM, yes. I mean, it comes into what is the priority for the business now. So let's say I've done my financial reporting, so what is next? And then it actually comes to what business activities you have inside the company. So I look at a 360 view on a company business activity, and it comes around marketing, it comes around sales, managing sales, customers, and everything. So the first thing I believe as number one priority after financial resources is actually CRM. So it requires sometimes, of course, some expertise to come and install it for you. But what I suggest is, like, there are already solutions that are cloud-based and they are within budget and could be simple enough to at least store this information for the future.
Okay. So, and do you think, and maybe any of the panelists have a view on this, do you think that the organizational structure of local businesses is a hindrance towards this type of development in terms of the fact, and what I mean is they can be very hierarchical. Decision making is done very high up, and it tends to be that the people low down would may have an interest but don't have sufficient influence to make such a change in the business.
I think I agree with you. There's an interesting view in this case, because decision making always comes, let's say, with the owner, or they say it in Arabic, arbab, right? So the arbab is like, or the big owner, sometimes it's a family business or a small business that's run by one-man show. So the decision is done by one person, but at the end of the day, someone has to support the owner or the decision maker with some sort of information. Otherwise, it's going to be like a gut feeling at the end of the day.
Okay. Yep. I can add to this. It's not necessarily the organizational structure that's hindering this. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. I think what we're learning here today is that the decision makers need support. Whether they do it themselves, whether they have assistants or teams, that may be a different question. However, what we've learned here today is there's a lot of, the automation cycle or evolution is started already, since last century really, and it's going further and further. And it's no longer the data or the information, it's more of the insight and the foresight that Muhammad has mentioned. This analysis, this type of analysis has become more and more important to do and conduct in organizations. Who does it? It depends on the organization. It could be, you could call it a strategy team, you could call it a IT, business support team. You could call it whatever you want, as long as it is done. And it's unfair to blame the decision makers for this unless they have that kind of support. We need to give them that kind of support, whether analytical or whether it's an instinct-based, decision-making kind of basis. But this has to happen from someone in that organization or some team in that organization, so that decision makers can make, better decisions. Right.
That's a good point. But do you not think that, in these types of hierarchies, the man at the top, let's say, or the man with the decision-making power should also be the person with the vision? And in having that vision, obviously they should be looking at either efficiencies or competitiveness, either against their peers or on a global scale, looking at expansion. Do you think it's not remiss? We're not just about CRM, but when we talk about other analytics or in-house reporting or looking at their profile of their customers, how their business can grow, market research, all the rest of it, should that person not have the vision to want to do more, to become more competitive?
Yeah, I think it definitely do. And part of that vision is what data, what environment am I running my business in, right? So what are my consumers or my clients saying? What are my peers in the market doing? What are my competitors doing? How is the industry moving? But what I'm trying to say also is maybe the decision makers or the CEOs or owners of the companies do not necessarily have all the ingredients to make that vision, or maybe they do that vision based on what they know. They need more information. They need more data information and insight and foresight, as again what Muhammad has said, to be able to formulate that vision, right? Do they do that today? Probably not. And that's exactly what we're discussing today. They need support systems or support teams to be able to formulate that vision, and then they will be responsible to execute on it using the organizational structure and strategy.
Yep. So is there any questions from the audience to panelists on this topic before I move on to the next question? Sir, at the front. You just have to shout, I'm afraid, sir.
in general, since I deal with quantitative things, even if things are qualitative, somehow, in a kind of a digital way, you can quantify it, keeping in mind that the quantification doesn't have the measurement value. To give you an example, suppose you say, if, for example, if we give free entrance on Fridays, do you know what I'm saying? You'll have more customers. So we can categorize it in very good, good, okay, bad. Then you can give it 0, 1, 2, 3. As long as you understand that as is an order. In other words, 1 is better than 0, and 2 is better than 1. But the difference between 2 and 1 and 1 and 0 is 1. That doesn't have any significance. Do you know what I'm saying? That's why I say culture, customs, domain knowledge is very important. Do you know what I'm saying? Otherwise, if you give 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, do you know what I'm saying? To somebody who's sitting in Timbuktu, he looks at it, do you know what I'm saying? 3 is better than 1, twice as 1 to 1. Whereas that might be not be the case. So bottom line is that at the end of the day, if you want to use computers, say 0, 1, right? You have to quantify things. And in this quantification, we need the domain knowledge. We need the expertise. We need the knowledge of thing. And then you might decide 0, 1, 2, 3 and say, no, akhi, it's better to put 0, 10, 100. Or take the logarithm scale. Do you know what I'm saying? So the answer is that somehow you have to do it qualitatively, quantitatively, to be able to do it. Quality, you can do it based on color. Do you know what I'm saying? You say red is good. Do you know what I'm saying? Yellow is okay. Green is excellent. Yellow is okay, red is bad, right? But then also you can say, you know what, green, red, green, yellow, essentially you get the frequency of light. So we can translate it to that. So I don't know whether I answered the wrong question incorrectly or I'm confusing you more. But essentially you can qualify it, but perhaps Carl can add some. Oh no, there are a lot of techniques. I don't want to make this into a techie conversation. They're huge, as he said, graphical things. You can just look at these different panels that do it, and they even look at the correlation and so on. No, that one go to SAS. They have enough of. I know they have, because when I was in university, I used to use their system to turn qualitative into manageable. Do you know what I'm saying? So the answer to your question is yes. I know what I took a 10-second question and I give a 2-minute answer.
I think I can add something also.
Okay, sorry, you too.
Yeah, no problem, because I'm sitting aside. But qualitative versus quantitative, you need both, right? You said, how can I add it? It actually, you need both of the methodologies to come up with a conclusion at the end of the day. And I heard that before is like people are different as well. Have you any of you guys done a personality test before? So in personality test, they actually categorize. You ask you certain questions, and you get also some pictures with it to basically measure you and put you into like 4 colors. Green is being numeric and very analytical person. Blue is emotional. So it's a guy that is like, or someone who's very emotional about what his decision making sometimes. Orange is someone who's very organized, and then gold is a leader. And you need not just one of them, you need all of them in any business in order to get to a proper decision making. Otherwise, if we follow just data, then that might lead us somewhere else. Right? Or we follow data, of course, facts and numbers and everything. So some decision makers will say, okay, I like numbers. Numbers says this, that. But you have maybe the CEO who actually sees visions rather than numbers. And he said, you know what? No, I know that this is the data that's telling me this, but I want, as a leader, to go that way. So that's a decision making at the end of the day. And you need the 4 types of people.
I always throw a monkey wrench in discussions. His point is true, but the main difference between human beings and objects is that human beings have a feedback system. In other words, they can correct the way they think. Before getting married, I was orange, highly disorganized. I'm serious, wallahi. After getting married, I'm green. And I would never go close to gold because my wife is the leader, is the gold. So this characterization, US government also uses when they hire somebody. They say, you know what, this guy should be inventory. This guy should be in sales, right? It is true, but always keep in mind, human beings are changeable.
True.
You have seen people who were, suddenly they became leaders. Do you know what I'm saying? You have to be in the right position at the right time, right? By the way, I'm much older than these guys, so I've seen a lot of these things and a lot of these categorizations. You know what I'm saying? I know the worst thing is that say this guy is Majnun. He might not be Majnun. He, poor guy, had a hard life. He has to support his family. He cannot focus on his studies. Do you know what I'm saying? But again, with all the apologies to my friends to my right and left, I guess I have always to give different angles to the reality. I mean, real world is far more complicated than 2 + 2 = 4. By the way, I do math on daily basis. Look at all my trades. How many filters I run? How many probabilities I look at this? And I know that the most amazing thing is human beings and their reaction in the market. Look at where euro is. 5 months ago, everybody's on the member saying euro is going to 112. It's 137. Human beings, don't underestimate human beings. Anyway.
So did you get that one right, Dr. Khosrow?
Actually, I'm suffering. That's why you always remember. They say, by the way, I believe in this. I'm hurting, but they say success is the worst teacher. Because when you succeed, you think you are abqari, right? Almost always, I learned from my mistakes and when I had big losses. That's why I started to think, what went wrong? See, you make all these models based on certain assumptions. Which part of my assumption was wrong, right? And I tell you, the worst thing that can happen to Shabab is success early in their life. That's the worst thing that can happen to them. And look at all these fannans in the US, etc., that become big when they are 18, 19. Most of the time, they fade out. Anyway, this has become a social science instead of financial science, but anyway.
It's a very interesting angle. And a bunch more questions for you on that. But I'm going to put the next question to you. So I'll move on to question 2. Because of your obvious Amazon expertise, Dr. Khosrow, I want to bring this question to you. How does the internet age support businesses to meet their information needs? And how do you see local businesses underutilizing the power of the internet?
The second question, how a local business can use it, I think both Carl and my friend on the left will be in a better position. Because unfortunately, my focus is very specific to trading. And I don't deal with customers that much. On a personal basis, I love them and I have dinner with them. But you know what I'm saying? I don't dig into their business. But internet is amazing if you really utilize it. Amazing. To give you an example, not that I'm using, but see, your phone, right? When you get into a place, they can say, for example, Abu Ali has entered. Do you know what I'm saying? And if you have the data profile of this Abu Ali, I know he has young children, etc., then if you have got special sales, do you know what I'm saying? You can offer him, rather than having one page with all the special sales. Do you know what I'm saying? Let's talk about Tamimi. When I go to the Tamimi, if they have my profile, they shouldn't show me diapers. My children are in the US, all of them are grown-ups. Do you know what I'm saying? But if Abu Ali comes with his wife and they have 2 small kids, then if there is takhwizat al-khas for, I think they should give it to them. But immediately they can get it from the mobile and the database. They do data mining, etc. And it's tremendous. So essentially, what internet does is that makes what you do and your marketing, etc., more efficient and focused. And essentially, that's how your standard of living will go up. So when you don't waste a lot of time doing things, the economy and the whole society will be better off, because the energy of people are not wasted in, for example, printing 200 pages of takhwizat al-khas that nobody looks at it. I mean, when I go to Tamim, I throw it out, because I know what I want is very limited. And they shouldn't focus on me, but they should focus on a lot of other people. So if the guy has small children, so near where the small, say, dress for children is, should be the toys. Do you know what I'm saying? Etc., etc. So I see it tremendously. I mean, tremendous. I can sit down here and just tell you, I mean, case after case after case. But I think Carl and my friend are in better shape to tell me about the Saudi market.
Well, I mean, I would just make one point. I think we would all agree that local businesses are underutilizing the power of the internet. Many times when you go and try and search for a company, you might find a result in Zawiya, but they probably don't have a website. They're not marketing themselves. They're not communicating properly with their customers. They're not giving themselves even a local, let alone a global presence. And one statistic which I picked up while I was doing some research was from Google, and they had done research over many thousands of businesses, and this was actually in Southeast Asia, and they found that web-enabled businesses had 51% of them had higher revenues, 49% of them had higher profits, and 7% of them had broader customer bases than their counterparts that were not web-enabled. So it's obviously a no-brainer, and we know, it's a given, we know that the local businesses are not using the internet enough. So what should be their first step, Mohammed?
Right. Just to add to the mix, basically, of stats, we're talking about 2 million to 3 million companies here in the Middle East, right? I can tell you only around 15% of them are online. That's a huge gap, and everybody actually knows that. If you find some actually company today, other than the professional big ones, you're probably going to find them on Facebook, or someone is talking about the retail shop next to his door, or something like this. So there is a gap for awareness of these guys. Need to know that online is the way forward, and not just being online means on the web, but we're talking also mobile. Mobile is the next generation for us. And in that sense, how I can utilize internet in my business today is basically people to find me. You know, it's the most simple need for them is to get recognized for what they do or what they work on, rather than just spending all the efforts, doing offline contact basically with everyone else. I think this is of course needed, and this the old way of doing business, and no one is going to change that. You still need that. What I'm saying is, why don't you get more of it?
So you know that these, I mean, organisations. Okay, so the next step after that, they get a web presence. They at least have a comprehensible and organised web page. Why aren't organisations in the region? I mean, I know it's happening. We see it to some extent in the UAE, and I think there's definitely been an uplift in the last couple of years in the UAE. But e-commerce. Why aren't businesses doing it? What is it? Is it the business? Are they worried about security, or is it the public? They don't want to make the payments. What's the issue?
That's a very interesting question, because again, we in the Middle East, we still, I mean, good initiatives are coming and popping up in the region for at least, for example, paying online. People had that trust issue that, I'm going to get hacking, or I'm going to get robbed if I put my credit card online and stuff like this. So it's still a worry for a lot of people. But one issue comes from support for multiple, basically, payment gateways in the region, and comes from all the telecom companies to be involved in this. The only one I know that N2V today offers cash to, cash you, like a card that you can use and fill every day or every month according to your need, to help basically businesses get online and get purchases, for example, from retail, which is on the rise, by the way. But we need more. We need to support the businesses today with the right infrastructure to do the right business.
And I guess the last point I want to make on this subject, the last question I want to pose, what about social media? Do you think that organizations in the region would feel, so we've talked about lack of, let's say, internal know-how to deploy something like CRM. Social media and the knowledge of how to harness that is another level up, if you like. It's a clever
Exactly.
business. Not everyone is a PR expert. I know I'm not. So is that a barrier as well? Should organizations be doing more with social media, and how can they do that?
Well, social media is as if you're going in front of TV. It's almost the same, because you can get positive feedback or negative feedback, or you could be, sorry for my French, naked in front of everybody. So you have to be careful how you would utilize social media, and it is needed because your customers, almost all of them, are in there. So in terms of numbers, I can give you, for example, in Saudi, I believe around 4 million, a minimum of 4 million people are on, of course, using social media on Facebook. More on Twitter, by the way, than Facebook itself. So that's an opportunity. Your customers are there for you as a business. So you can utilize all of the power and leverage on, let's say, how many likes I get. It's an indication of loyalty, let's say, if I'm selling a certain product or service.
Good, thank you. Okay, so are there any questions from the audience? Gentleman at the back there. You have to stand up and shout.
Which one?
السؤال هو الآن نتكلم عن موضوع المعلومة، من يملك المعلومة يملك القوة. نتكلم الآن من شق واحد وهو الشق التجاري، الجهة التي تملك المعلومة لكي تصنع القرار. أنا أنظر السؤالين من شقين. الشق الأول هو كيف أحصل على المعلومة كجهة تجارية وأنا لا أملك مركز معلومة. يعني كمثال أريد أن يكون لدي مركز وطني للمعلومات يتيح لي حرية الوصول للمعلومات في الوقت الذي أحتاج إليه لكي أستطيع أن أعمل مسح ميداني قليل التكلفة. من جهة أخرى، السؤال من جهة أخرى كمستهلك أريد أن أعرف السوق، من يقدم الخدمة، سواء خدمات تجارية أو خدمات سفر وسياحة أو خدمات إلكترونية في أي مجال من المجالات، لكي أتخذ قرار صحيح كمستهلك بأن أتوجه للمكان الذي يوفر لي فرصة جيدة كمستهلك. ما هي الرؤية الموجودة حاليا في ظل هذه الحوارات للوصول إلى أن أخدم نفسي كمستهلك وأخدم نفسي كتاجر للوصول إلى المعلومة الصحيحة في الوقت المناسب؟
Okay, I didn't quite catch all of that. So, Mohammed, could you?
Two questions.
Yes.
One gets the information, right?
Yes. One, well, no. Well, okay, let me just introduce it. So his question basically is like, I am a business owner today, but I don't own the information itself. So he's talking to us today that we own the information. So that's the first question. How can I get to information if I don't have the ownership of this information? All right, so that's the first one. So I think you can go.
Let me give it a go. See, the first thing is that you might not have that information, but you have a competitor. And that competitor, either here or in the US, might have that kind of information. So at this time, you can use that, right? Some data warehousing. And they say the journey of 5,000 miles starts with the first step. You don't have it? Start it today. you have got SAS, you have got Thomson Reuters. You start doing it, right? If you don't have it. So what you can do is just can first find somebody who is very similar to your business, and at this time, use that while you are building your own. For a third of the price that I have incurred, you can have it. That's one. Shakla Wahid, Shakla Thani. What's the second?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello next door. We're delighted.
We can't hear the questions of audience.
Sorry, we will try and we're short of a roaming mic, so I will try and repeat them.
Okay.
But I didn't understand that one.
Can we make questions?
Please.
Okay. You talk about opportunity. Do you believe is this real luck is what happened when preparation meets opportunity? Here in our country, maybe opportunity is so difficult. Yeah? And I have an opinion, maybe it will be something to help. You give us as an example with an eye sensor. Sensors surround us, we need to be used it in the development of our business and our economy. We must not limit ourselves and just use it. Do you agree with me? Here in our country, we need specialized professional development in the basis of success. We miss specialized professional. So how can we improve or develop our business where it just becomes to some names and special families? We don't have opportunity.
Who is this question for?
I don't remember names.
I think it's for Carl.
What, the guy with the glasses, without glasses, or what? The blonde guy, or what?
You should say.
In the middle.
Oh, so that's me.
British.
Is that right?
Oh, the British.
No, British guy is to my right.
Well,
he's German. I think he sounds German. His name sounds German. Ach so.
All of you are welcome here in our.
Thank you very much. Shukran
Thank
jazilan.
you. Shukran. Thank you very much. It's a good question, and it's a bit of a loaded question because it's very emotional. The type of decision making that you have to do to enable not only a country but an organization, and let's go a little bit lower than organization, a person to be able to make a good decision. We have already started some initiatives at the ground level with the universities here in Saudi. What we find for Saudi Arabia specifically is the numismatical skills of the younger generation and the older generation, I guess, but the younger generation specifically, the guys that are in tertiary education right now, are really, really solid, based on very solid mathematics. So we have already started teaching the younger generation, and a multi-generational outputs are already coming out of the universities, where King Saud University and all the other 3 big universities where we are engaged with analytical academic programs are already producing students that are coming into the workplace, like Samba or other workplaces, and they know that the decision-making cycle is not just me getting this piece of paper and putting a tick in the box that I now know how many sales we made last month, but they understand the process. They understand the process of decision-making, and they understand that this process is a mixture of qualitative, visual, textual, complex, analytical, to come to a place where the mathematics gives me a specific hypothesis which I can now quantitatively go and explore and test according to the knowledge and experience that I have. So I think the biggest problem we have at the moment is we have to wait a little bit, because the generation that is coming out of the tertiary education now are already much more analytical in their thinking, inquisitive in their thinking, irrespective of gender, irrespective of family, irrespective of anything. They are much more inquisitive. They are starting to ask the questions. Well, they are very clever. They are very, from a numismatical perspective, they are very clever. And as long as you can be inquisitive about the world around you, as long as you can ask questions, then you can go and explore methodologies and methods to go and answer those questions appropriately. And the one thing we put forward for exploring this.
I think we are late from our other countries. Other countries are now looking for electronic, maybe fast as light.
Let me give you an example. I come from South Africa. I was born and raised there. And we did not have television in South Africa until 1973. But the first television was created in, doctor, help me out, not that I think you were there, but just...
I had a part in it in the 30s.
It's like the 30s, right?
Exactly.
So South Africa were 30 years, 40 years behind the rest of the world in getting visual media over the airwaves. However, when we did get it, we got the best, most optimum technology that was available. And still our broadcasting network in South Africa is the best in the world. The same with the rest of Africa. Africa did not have mobile networks until the late 1990s. So 1996, 1998, around there, mobile telephony really took off there. Now, the mobile networks in some of the worst countries in the world, like Nigeria, Ivory Coast, all of these war-ridden countries are better than the mobile networks you would find in the US or in some of the countries in Europe. So it's not always a disadvantage to be late to market. The big thing is, please do start. Do become inquisitive and then follow the appropriate path that is available to you, because now what we are missing is we are missing the entire horrible era of warehousing, and we can move directly into analytical decision making. What a privilege. I mean, this is really an advantage to be in, because now we can work with the most optimum technologies. We've got capability sets available to us that wasn't available even 2 years ago. So we need to start using, we need to stop believing that we're starting from the back foot and just look at what the best methodologies are that's out there and start adopting them quicker, because they are already tried and tested, and we can just take the best from the best.
Yes, we need to work and keep on with the technique evaluation around us.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because
with young leaders, maybe it's better, or people who have a professional degree. Maybe this is the most problem we have. We don't have professional or specialized people here. Just have a high degree, he has a high response or manager.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, but again, remember we are starting this journey, and we started, I mean, SAS really started engaging in Saudi Arabia. Our first customer was one of the banks, and they started with SAS in 1983. So our first license in Saudi Arabia was issued against a mainframe for a bank in 1983. So the journey is robust. All I'm saying is, don't look at the past and what has been, but we can physically, by using the most appropriate methodologies and capabilities and the will to succeed, start pushing change forward. And that's the only way it's going to happen.
First
it's
of
not
all, we need electronic government. This is
that will
real,
it will definitely help. I agree with you, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's actually
let me just make one quick point.
Sure, go for it.
Ukhti, I really disagree with you on this narrow field of data mining and machine learning. First, this is an area that's going to pay well, and you don't need the mixing of the sexes. You can sit in your home and do that data analysis and use the SaaS software, etc., and get the database from Reuters. Secondly, I want to second Carl. You are not that far behind. What you need is financial support, which is buying some servers and buying some of the licenses from Reuters and SaaS. Alhamdulillah, the country is rich. You can buy it.
I'm a trainer
Okay.
for fabrication laboratory.
Okay.
I need someone to take this young students who have genius mind, who have everything to do.
So that's exactly what I said. These guys who are the leaders of the of the business or their bosses, they should give, for example, grants to say Prince Sultan. That's where I teach.
I'm working with King Abdulaziz.
Alhamdulillah.
Technology.
Alhamdulillah. The thing is this, Ukhti, things are not easy. You think, if you think it's a turnkey, it's not. But if you want, you have to press.
I will keep on.
Exactly.
I will not give up.
And one last thing is that, Ukhti, whining doesn't get anybody anywhere. Do you know what I'm saying? I can complain up to tomorrow morning, right? And the only thing my management does, if they don't throw me out of their office, is just they watch the TV till I finish.
I just don't want to disappoint my students. That's all. I need people who have money to believe in science and technology. This is
Then you have a marketing problem. You have to sit down and say, I cannot go and just scream. I have to tell them, show them results. And you
How
have
can I give them results? Why I haven't kits, tools, I don't have place to train the students. I just
you know what? There are so many things even on the YouTube you can show them. You know, I'm telling you, do you know Jeopardy? Do you know that?
I did workshop for 5 days at Tikar 12:30, and it was very, very nice.
You know what? Let's take this offline. We are not going to get anywhere. We are not going to get. But you have to convince somebody, and now don't forget.
Okay, thank
You have 35 seconds to. You don't need a 5-day workshop. That's my, for example, criterion for anybody who comes to me and shows me a new structure. If it takes 5 minutes to explain it to me, as akhi, I've been in this business of trading for 30 years. It's taking you 5 minutes for you to explain it to me. You have to make your pitch in 35 seconds. Elevator. You get into the elevator, you can explain it to her by the time you get out, right? That's your challenge. But let's take it offline. I think I don't want to spend too much of my time.
Thank you very much for your question. And I think we can be very encouraged because we know that the huge Generation Y in Saudi, for example, is very well educated. There's a significant investment in their education. And when these guys get into the workplace, all of the things that we talked about today in terms of bringing professionalism to data mining, to analytics, to the business, they, as you say, will these people be better equipped to make a compelling case to the decision makers in their business? Can they make the elevator pitch? Absolutely, they should be able to, because that's what they've been doing for the last 4 years at school. So hopefully they will have the tools. Thank you. So I'm gonna skip question 3. It was a great one, but I'm gonna, in the interest of time, I'm gonna move on just onto the last question, which is, what do you see as the main challenges to local businesses implementing integrated information systems? Now, I know some of this is going to be overlapping with some of the points that we've already covered in the discussions and the presentations. There's certainly a few points that I wanted to tease out of people. So, Sama, if I could ask for your thoughts on that first, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the obvious challenge would be for a local business, or I'm assuming, small to medium enterprises, obviously finances, and how much money can we spend on improving our processes or improving our systems. That's the kind of common sense or the normal one. However, I think there's another one that affect not only small enterprises or small companies, but also large ones. And we've seen it over and over again, and probably SAS could concur with that, is the opportunity of changing or reinventing your processes while you're implementing such solutions, you know, decision-making support solutions, right? I see it in many cases where systems are being implemented to replicate or maybe automate the current processes that have been built, you know, 30 or 40 or even in some cases 50 years ago. And guess what? Those processes that were done, you know, years ago were done with a big IT limitation. Today, those, you know, limitations do not necessarily exist. So I think the challenge for these companies when they're implementing new solutions or they want to implement new solutions is to rethink those processes, maybe re-engineer some of the processes and make benefit of what more can we do? Is this really still relevant? Do we still need to go from A to B to C to D, or can we go straight from A to D given, you know, the technology advancement? I think these are the kind of main, you know, 2 points that I would say they will face as challenges in their implementation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and probably Carl, you can elaborate on this, but I think that what you're always going to find is a certain amount of organizational inertia. And I guess in your experience, you see this when you're implementing new systems. How can management work, or what do you think that management needs to do of within an organization to create the right climate for change when implementing new systems?
I would, if I sat here 7 years ago before coming to this region, I would have given you my MBA answer. But I'm going to give you my honest answer. And my honest answer is, unless top management, the guy who signs the check, unless he buys into whatever you want to do, it is impossible to change. You need to create an impetus, not in the lower echelons. That's easy to do once the guy who signs the check says, we're doing this. That's the easiest and only way to make things happen, not only in Saudi, don't get me wrong. In the entire region I work in, Middle East, Africa, Turkey, and Pakistan, there's always one golden boy with the checkbook that says, guys, I don't care whether you ever see your families again, but I want this up and running by Wednesday. And it will be so. And that is the guy we need to look for.
Good. Any questions from the audience on this? Otherwise, we will wrap up today's... Sir. I'll just repeat the question so our neighbours can hear. So how should an organisation align its financial objectives with its organisational?
What I mean, how the top management can take a proper decision making while they cannot link their financial objectives along with their...
Okay. So how can they make a proper decision when financial objectives and organisational objectives are not aligned?
What I mean, the top executive is not aligned to link both objectives along together. How can he make a decision?
Okay.
This is the main point.
Who wants to have a crack at that?
I can start with what I know today is most of the companies, I see your point very clear, that if you're not linking these, then decision making is flowed. That's what you're trying to say. But if a proper company has a proper strategy, right, in place, strategy is about what? All the objectives going in the same direction. Strategy, as simple as that, regardless of any books you can read. It's about all the company, every individual in the company going in the same direction. So if a company doesn't have a proper strategy that aligns all of the financials KPIs with the operations KPI, you guess what? You have decisions that are left, right, center. So strategy is the right answer for your question. I think you guys can elaborate if you want.
Well, let me take it. This is the way I pose the question to the manager. You want to make a decision, right? Suppose you expand. Let's look at Jarir, that's expanding, right? To make a decision, what do you need? What information, what forecast you need, right? The question is sales and expenses. And at what interest rate you want to discount it, the internal rate of return, to find whether it's IRR positive or not. Then to make that decision, this is the kind of information that you need. What is your expected sale, the distribution of it? Either you can sit down in your office and say, oh, I think this, say, you know what, no or no. Let's gather data. What is the population? What is the population growth? What percentage of it are school children, etc., etc. What do school children buy? Books or stationery? Do you know what I'm saying? You put them together and say, this is a better decision, expand in this place, that place, that place. Otherwise, you can go with your gut feeling and, oh yeah, that's true. And I think they would appreciate it. Say, okay, what are the information that you want? How are you getting it? Your gut feeling, I can give you a better one. Using the historical data that we have had. We can borrow it from Royters. We can get SAS to clean it and essentially make it. Or, for example, we look at what Al-Obeikan did and we say that's very similar to you. Or perhaps the design should be more stationary for small kids if it is, I know, in one part of Saudi Arabia that there are more kids, and in other parts there should be more books. So the bottom line is that. What information do you need to make a good decision? Suppose I can give everything to you, just write it down. And let's try to get it. Rather than relying on sitting around the table, what do you think? What do you think? Let's call that guy. That's my answer. What kind of information you need? What can you do about it?
Thank you. So we have to draw it to a close. We've overrun by 20 minutes. I have several thank yous that I want to make. Firstly, thank you very much to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting us for this event, inviting us and giving us the forum, and obviously all their communications out to their audience in order to give you guys the opportunity to come here. Thank you very much to our esteemed panelists in absentia, Annabelle, Carl, Dr. Khosrow, Mohammed, thank you very much. Thank you, Sama, for your words at the beginning. And thank you all as an audience for attending and enjoying the session. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I think we were very lucky today to have such diverse viewpoints come together and create such enthralling sessions. So again, thank you very much, and I wish you luck out there on the roads in the rain. Please take your bags. There's bags of gifts outside, and I believe there's refreshments available opposite from the door. Thank you very much.